happened aboard the Singapore Airlines flight from London has triggered a series of questions that we must not stop asking. Do airlines and civil aviation authorities need to revise the rules of flying? Because what happened to the Singapore Airlines flight was unusual. One moment the plane was at cruising altitude and the next moment it was shaking. Soon the plane dropped 6,000 feet. A passenger died. 30 others were injured. 20 remain in the ICU. It's scary to say the least. Singapore Airlines says it is investigating the cause of extreme turbulence and we wait for the result of the probe. But in the meantime, we must tell you that this is the new normal, it seems. Incidents of turbulence are increasing around the world. And why does turbulence happen? Mostly because of strong winds. Turbulence is expected when a flight is ascending or descending. It's very common. And it's why it is mandatory to keep your seat belts on during takeoff and landing. But the Singapore Airlines flight was hit by turbulence at cruising height. That is when the seatbelt signs are off. People are walking around the cabin. What explains turbulence at such a height? Sometimes at a higher altitude, a plane is hit by turbulence because it is flying close to another aircraft. Turbulence is also common near mountain ranges or at the edges of the jet streams. Then you have clear air turbulence. It's dangerous because, as the name suggests, clear air turbulence cannot be seen. It is undetectable. It does not show up on the weather radar. So the pilots sitting in the flight deck do not know what's approaching them unless another flight in front of them has experienced severe turbulence and reported it. What often causes clear air turbulence is when warmer air rises into cooler air. A study published in 2023 reports a rise in clear air turbulence. What's the reason? Climate change. If that be the reason, then what's stopping safety guidelines from changing with the changing climate? If severe turbulence at cruising height is the new normal, shouldn't rules change as well, keeping in mind this new normal? Let's start by asking passengers to keep their seat belts fastened at all times. I know it's inconvenient, but it's safe. Of course, that is what the flight safety protocol suggests, to keep the seatbelt on at all times. But making this mandatory is what we are suggesting. We know that pilots switch on the seatbelt signs when they expect turbulence, but clear air turbulence, like we mentioned, cannot be detected. One passenger traveling in the London-Singapore flight said the people on board did not receive any warning before the plane dropped thousands of feet. This passenger and his wife were thrown out of their seats, by the way. They went on to hit the ceiling. Their son was thrown on the floor. The passenger said some people who were walking around the cabin when the turbulence hit started doing somersaults. Another said people did not have the seatbelts on at that time. While some did put them on, those who could not or did not were thrown around the cabin. A third passenger said, and I'm quoting here, "I saw people from across the aisle going completely horizontal, hitting the ceiling and landing back down in like awkward position. People chipped their tooth. Some got a cut in their eye. People found themselves on the floor bleeding." What happened on that Singapore Airlines flight is an eye-opener. It calls for going back to the drawing board. Perhaps improving the quality of our seat belts as well. They have remained the same for the last couple of decades, after all. There is a need perhaps for some manufacturing rethinking as extreme turbulence becomes the new normal. Can manufacturers do something to ensure that the overhead storage bins do not open in such situations and heavy bags can be stopped from falling on passengers? Reports say that in the Singapore Airlines flight, the passengers who were in the washrooms were among those who were injured the worst. Can manufacturers make the flight washrooms safer? Like I said, we need to go back to the drawing room. What can be done immediately, though, is the change in the seat belt policy for all flights and definitely for some flight routes that are more turbulent than others. The route between Santiago and Santa Cruz is considered the world's most turbulent route, followed by Almaty-Bishkek, Bishkek, Lanzhou Chengdu, Centrair Sendai. The route between Milan and Geneva is the 5th most turbulent route in the world. In 2017, a study predicted that clear air turbulence may be 4 times as common by 2050. It means authorities must act now in order to avoid more loss of life in turbulent flights. And for you, it means next time, think twice before complaining about fastening your seatbelt. To stay up to speed with the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.